All right, so looking to really get under the hood of the 2024 U.S. presidential election. All the crazy stuff that went down.
Yeah, I mean,
We've got you covered.
it was wild.
Where gave us a ton of great sources. And it seems like you're really interested in how all the candidates were impacted by all the just wild events that went on during this election cycle.
Definitely anything but typical.
So to set the stage,
Absolutely.
this was the 60th U.S. presidential election happening on November 5th, 2024. But this wasn't your normal election year.
Right.
We had an incumbent president, Joe Biden, who was initially set for rematch
Yeah.
against Donald Trump. But then out of nowhere,
Yeah.
Biden withdraws from the race
Big surprise.
on July 21st.
Nobody saw that coming.
Nobody saw that coming,
It was unprecedented.
citing concerns over his age and health.
Right. Yeah. I mean, a sitting president steps back
A sitting president steps back
after securing his party's nominee.
after securing the nomination.
So that was a big.
That was huge.
Yeah, huge. And what's so interesting about that is how this really reshaped things for the Democrats, especially.
Right, because that meant that Vice President Kamala Harris automatically becomes the Democratic nominee.
She didn't
No primaries,
Barrett's at all.
no debates.
Yeah.
She's thrust into the spotlight.
Crazy.
Did this benefit her? Or did this create some unforeseen challenges?
It's a good question. It's complex.
Yeah.
On the one hand, she bypasses this grueling primary process.
Right.
She inherits this ready-made campaign structure, but she also inherits all of Biden's baggage.
Oh, interesting.
So she's, facing scrutiny over her time as VP.
Right.
And she really has to step up and define herself
Define herself as a leader
in her own right.
in her own right. Okay.
Yeah.
So she's running against Donald Trump,
Yep.
who
Facing investigation.
facing these ongoing investigations related to January 6th.
Yeah.
Secures the Republican nomination again.
Again. Yep.
For those who might need a refresher,
Sure.
these investigations were really focused on Trump's role in the events of the Capitol
Back in 2021.
back in 2021, potentially,
Right.
leading to charges of obstruction of justice and
Inciting an insurrection.
inciting an insurrection.
Cool stuff.
So this legal battle really casts a shadow
Oh, for sure.
over Trump's campaign from the get-go.
Right from the start.
Raises questions about his eligibility
Absolutely.
and just adds another layer of drama to an already unusual election.
Yeah, for sure.
And just when you thought it couldn't get any crazier,
Crazier.
July 13th, 2024,
Oh, boy.
Donald Trump survives an assassination attempt.
Wow.
8 shots were fired.
Scary.
1 person in the audience was killed, 2 others were injured,
Yeah.
and Trump sustained an ear injury.
It's just crazy.
How did this event
It's hard to even imagine.
impact the campaigns?
Well, you got to think about the immediate security concerns, right? This event undoubtedly forced both campaigns to reassess their security protocols, making public appearances more restricted.
Right.
And that likely influenced their willingness to do big rallies and things.
Right. I mean, it's hard to even imagine the
The emotional toll.
emotional toll on everyone involved.
Everyone, yeah.
How did this assassination attempt affect Trump's messaging or voter behavior? Was there a rally around the flag effect?
It's possible. It's hard to measure the impact directly,
Right.
but an event like that could have really galvanized his base.
Right.
Fostered this, sense of sympathy, maybe solidified their support.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it also put issues of political violence and societal division, front and center for the country.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we have Kamala Harris, the first female president,
Running for re-election.
against Donald Trump, who's facing legal challenges.
Yeah.
And survived an assassination attempt. Add to that the other candidates: Cornel West running as an independent, Jill Stein with the Green Party, and Chase Oliver representing the Libertarians.
And don't forget, RFK Jr.
Oh, yeah.
Initially an independent, but he ended up endorsing Trump.
Wow. So that just further
Complicates things.
complicates the political landscape.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have a stage full of players, each with their own baggage and unique challenges.
It's a crowded stage.
To understand how this election unfolds,
We have to talk about.
we need to talk about the infamous Electoral College.
Oh yeah, can be a bit of a headache.
I know. It can seem like a snooze fest, but trust me, this system can create some truly wild results.
It can be a wild ride.
So
So it's not a straightforward popular vote.
Right.
We've got 538 electors total, and each state gets a certain number based on its population and representation in Congress.
Okay.
Candidate needs at least 270 of these electoral votes to win the presidency.
Right.
But here's the thing. Most states work on a winner-take-all system.
So, even if you win the popular vote in a state by just a little bit,
Tiny bit.
you get all of its electoral votes.
All of them. Yep.
Wow.
Maine and Nebraska split some votes proportionally by district, but for the most part, it's winner-take-all.
So that means that a candidate can win the presidency while losing the popular vote,
Exactly. Happened in 2016.
as we saw in 2016 with Trump.
Yep. Exactly.
Understanding this unique system.
Yeah.
Let's see how it plays out
How it all went down.
in this particularly eventful election year.
All right, so the voting actually began weeks before November 5th.
Oh, wow.
A lot of states offer early voting and mail-in ballots.
Interesting.
The first mail-in ballots were sent out September 6th in North Carolina, which, of course, immediately brought back all those memories of the 2020 election
Yeah.
and all those claims that Trump made about voter fraud.
Right.
Yeah,
It's like we're right back in that.
back in it again.
Back in it again.
Yep, and this is where things get really interesting.
Oh, okay.
You see, this election was really wrapped up in all these social movements that had been building for years.
Right.
Black Lives Matter,
Right.
Me Too,
Yeah.
the fight for climate justice. These movements weren't just, watching from the sidelines.
Right.
They were
They're
active.
participants.
Yeah, shaping the narrative.
Right.
Pushing candidates to address their concerns.
So they're registering voters, organizing protests, demanding action on issues like racial justice, gender equality, climate change.
Absolutely.
They weren't letting anyone off easy.
Yep.
Did these movements impact the campaigns of Harris and Trump?
For sure, both candidates had to deal with these powerful forces.
Right.
Even if it meant maybe alienating parts of their base.
Right.
For Harris, it was a real opportunity to connect with progressive voters,
Okay.
especially younger generations who were really invested in these movements.
So she was able to sort of leverage these movements
Yeah.
to strengthen her support among key demographics.
Exactly. We saw her embracing that language of social justice,
Right.
promising bold action on climate change, and actively, engaging with these movements on the campaign trail.
And what about Trump?
How'd he
How'd he handle the pressure from these movements?
It's a little more complicated with Trump. He couldn't just ignore them.
Right.
But he often framed them as these threats to traditional values.
Okay.
Which really appealed to his base.
Right.
Who maybe felt a little uneasy about all these cultural shifts.
So while Harris leaned into these movements,
Yeah.
Trump used them to kind of solidify his base.
Exactly. By drawing that contrast.
Interesting dynamic.
It was. It really highlighted how these movements had become such a key part of the political landscape.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got this backdrop of social movements, this volatile political climate. Let's talk about the media coverage.
Ooh, yeah.
Things got
Messy.
pretty messy.
Very messy.
The 2024 election saw an unprecedented level of disinformation and polarization
Yeah.
within the media landscape.
It was all over the place.
Traditional news outlets struggling to keep up
Keep up. Yeah.
with this rapid-fire world of social media.
That's right, where algorithms often prioritize engagement over accuracy.
It's like a breeding ground for misinformation.
It is.
You see a headline, you share it without even thinking, and boom, it's viral. Whether it's true or not.
Doesn't matter.
So this created this crazy situation
Yeah.
where voters are just bombarded
Bombarded.
with conflicting narratives, making it almost impossible
To know what's real.
to discern fact from fiction.
Right.
We saw these echo chambers forming
Oh, yeah.
where people were only exposed to information that confirmed their biases.
Exactly. Like we were living in parallel universes.
It's almost as if we were living in parallel universes.
It really felt that way.
And that just further deepens
Oh, yeah.
the divides in our society.
Deepens them, for
Yeah.
sure.
Makes constructive dialogue and debate almost impossible.
It's hard to have a conversation.
It's hard to have a conversation when everyone's living in their own little world.
Exactly.
So we also saw a lot of headlines about voter suppression and election integrity,
oh, yeah.
adding another layer of complexity to CLA.
Major flashpoints during the campaign.
Right.
You had groups worried about voter ID laws,
All right.
restrictions on mail-in voting, arguing these measures really hurt minority voters,
And then on the other side, you had groups claiming widespread voter fraud,
especially in cities. Yeah.
echoing those same allegations from 2020. It's almost like a tug of war over the very foundation of democracy,
It is.
with each side accusing the other of trying to rig the system.
Yeah, and these claims were amplified by partisan media
Right.
and politicians, creating this climate of distrust.
And suspicion.
Yeah, it makes it really tough for voters to have faith in the process.
It's dangerous no matter which side you're on.
It is. A healthy democracy needs people to believe in the system.
Right.
When that erodes, it can have serious consequences.
So we've got this media frenzy, social movements demanding action, and these deep concerns about the fairness of the election itself.
There's a lot going on.
How did the candidates themselves navigate this chaotic landscape?
Well, we saw some interesting changes in their strategies.
Okay.
For Harris, it was all about balancing Biden's legacy
Right.
with her own vision.
That must have been tricky.
It was a delicate balancing act.
Yeah.
She emphasized her experience
Okay.
as a prosecutor, a senator, the VP, highlighting her qualifications and that she was ready to lead.
Ready to go.
But at the same time, she addressed those criticisms head on, acknowledging past mistakes,
Right.
showing that she was willing to learn and evolve.
So she was acknowledging the past, but also projecting a vision for the future.
Exactly. And her policies reflected that she focused on social justice, climate change, aligning with those movements. But also economic equality and healthcare, things that appealed to a wider range of voters.
A more balanced approach.
Yeah, for sure.
And how did Trump adapt his messaging
Well,
in this unprecedented election cycle?
we saw a bit of a shift.
Okay.
He still had his rallies, energized his base with his usual style,
Right.
but he softened some of his more extreme positions.
Interesting.
It seemed like he was trying to appeal to a wider audience.
So less fire and brimstone, more focus on policy.
In a way, yeah.
Okay.
He talked about the economy, immigration, crime, painting Harris as this inexperienced radical
Right.
who would lead the country down a dangerous path.
Classic Trump. Create that sense of fear and
Yeah.
present himself as the solution.
It's a strategy that worked for him before.
It worked before.
It did.
So with all this going on, all this drama, all this uncertainty,
It's easy to get lost in the spectacle.
it's easy to lose sight of the actual issues.
What really matters.
So what were the key policy debates that defined this election?
Well, healthcare was still a big one.
Okay.
The Affordable Care Act,
Right.
Medicare for all,
Yeah.
the cost of prescription drugs.
Those kitchen table issues.
Exactly. Things that affect everyone.
And the economy was front and center,
Of course.
especially after the pandemic and rising inflation.
Absolutely. Job creation, taxes, trade, government spending, all those hot button issues.
Right.
And, we can't forget about climate change.
Right. Huge issue for younger generations.
Yeah, they're really concerned about the future of the planet.
For sure.
Harris made climate action a key part of her platform, talking about renewable energy, green technology, getting back into the Paris Agreement.
Sure.
Trump, on the other hand, downplayed it,
Right.
continued to support fossil fuels, really different approaches,
Different priorities.
different philosophies for sure.
So we've got these key policy debates happening against this backdrop of a super polarized media landscape.
Yeah.
Social movements demanding change. Unprecedented events like Biden's withdrawal, the assassination attempt.
A lot to unpack,
It was a volatile mix,
to say the least.
but it all came down to Election Day. What happened on that fateful night?
Well, the results were just as unpredictable as the election itself.
It must have been a nail-biter of a night.
It was
There
really.
were two incredibly strong personalities navigating a political landscape that just felt
Like a minefield.
like a minefield, yeah.
Totally.
So tell me,
Yeah.
who emerged from this chaotic election cycle as the victor?
Well, after a long wait and a few recounts in some key states,
Right.
Donald Trump was declared the winner.
Wow, so a second non-consecutive term for Trump.
Yeah.
Something we haven't seen in over a century.
It's pretty incredible.
What a testament to his staying power in American politics.
It really is. I mean, think about it. All the controversies, the impeachment, the January 6th investigations, the assassination attempt,
I mean, it's remarkable.
and he still pulled it off.
He still managed to rally a significant portion of the American electorate
Yep.
and reclaim the presidency.
It's a remarkable feat.
It is.
For sure.
What were the key factors that led to his victory?
Well, I think it was a few things.
Right.
He really mobilized his base, especially in rural areas and with white working class voters.
Okay.
Those anxieties about the economy, cultural change,
Right, that erosion of traditional values.
all that, he tapped into it really effectively.
So he doubled down on the strategy that won him the presidency in 2016.
Exactly. I mean, it worked before.
It worked.
Why not try it again, right?
And let's not forget about
The power of incumbent.
the power of incumbency. Even though he lost in 2020, he still held this really unique position as a former president.
Absolutely. I mean, he never really went away.
Right.
Always stayed in the public eye, challenging the Biden administration,
Yeah, kept himself relevant.
Kept himself relevant, top of mind for a lot of voters.
Now, we, of course, have to talk about the Electoral College.
Yeah, there it is.
Harris wins the popular vote, yet Trump secures the presidency.
Again.
This is going to reignite that debate
Oh, for sure.
about whether this system is truly representative
Of the people.
of the will of the people.
Right. It's already happening.
It's
a big question.
Yeah, it's a big question.
The Electoral College has always been controversial.
Right.
And this election just, throws gasoline on the fire.
Brings it right back to the forefront.
Exactly. Questions about fairness, representation, whether your vote really matters. It's a big deal.
What about the other candidates? Did they play a significant role in this election?
Oh, absolutely. They had an impact,
Even if they didn't?
even if they didn't win.
When?
Yeah, Cornel West, with his progressive platform, probably drew some votes away from Harris.
Right, those younger, more idealistic voters.
Yeah, looking for something different.
And Chase Oliver, the libertarian candidate, might have taken some votes from Trump.
Could be appealing to those libertarian values.
Individual liberty, limited government.
Exactly. These third-party candidates,
Yeah.
they're like a gauge of voter sentiment.
Interesting.
They show where the two big parties might be missing the mark.
They give a voice to those who feel unrepresented.
Absolutely. The folks who don't fit neatly into those boxes.
So we've unpacked a lot here.
We have.
This whirlwind of an election, the shocking withdrawal,
Yep.
the assassination attempt,
Crazy.
the media frenzy,
Yeah.
the clash of social movements,
So much going on.
and that nail-biting finish.
Down to the wire.
What does it all mean?
That's the question, isn't it?
What are the long-term implications of a second Trump presidency?
Well,
We're stepping into uncharted territory here.
we are a second Trump term after everything that's happened.
It's hard to even imagine.
It's bound to have a huge impact on, American politics, society as a whole.
What are some of the key things that we should be looking for as this new chapter unfolds?
Well, I think we can expect Trump to keep pushing his agenda.
Okay.
Immigration, trade, national security, those are going to be big.
So that America First approach,
Oh, yeah. Probably even stronger now.
potentially leading to more isolationist policies.
It's possible, and maybe some strained relationships with allies.
And what about here at home?
Yeah.
How will he handle these deep divisions that were exposed
Right.
and kind of exacerbated during this election?
That's the big question.
That's a-
The political climate is so volatile,
It is?
and everything that's happened has just made that partisan divide even worse.
Right.
So will he try to bring people together,
Right.
or will he just keep exploiting those divisions to, fire up his base?
We'll have to wait and see.
We will. Time will tell.
We covered a lot in this deep dive.
We have. It's been a journey.
From that unprecedented withdrawal of an incumbent president to those nail-biting election results.
It was a wild ride.
It really was.
Yeah.
What are your final thoughts for our listeners?
Well, I think the main takeaway here is that American democracy is facing some serious challenges.
Okay.
This election showed us just how vulnerable we are
So
to misinformation, to the power of social media, and how divided we are as a country.
right.
But it also shows how resilient we are.
Okay.
We have a system of government that's lasted for centuries. It's not perfect, but it works.
Yeah.
It's up to all of us
As citizens,
to stay informed,
Right.
to talk to each other, to hold our leaders accountable.
to engage in that thoughtful discourse.
Exactly. We can't predict the future,
Right.
but we can learn from what's happened
Yeah.
and work together to make things better.
Well said.
Thank you.
We can't predict the future, but we can learn from the past
That's right.
and work together to shape a better tomorrow.
Absolutely.